Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OpenActive Adoption Engagement Forum on the 30th of April 2025, or 2025 as it was more popularly known. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Really good to see you all. We're really excited to have Julian and Dave who have come along and kindly agreed to share with us some of the work that they've been doing up in Yorkshire. Well, Dave, I don't think is probably travelled to Yorkshire, but has been doing work on behalf of Yorkshire Sport Foundation. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to get to know a bit more about that work, and there should be some chance to sort of ask questions and have a bit of discussion as well. I'll start with usual reminders that if you're new to OpenActive, then please do join our Slack workspace. The link is here in the slides, which will be attached to the meeting recording if you're watching that down below in the description. Or if you need the link, then please
Literally just doing the update trial, so I've got
oh,
That Tom?
I think that's Tom. Are you iPad 8, Tom? If you could mute, that would be great. You just had a bit of background noise, but thank you. And thanks very much. Yeah, so if you have any questions or would like to find out more about OpenActive, then get in touch at hello@openactive.io. But yes, please do join our Slack workspace. It's a really good place to keep in touch with everyone in the community and find out what's going on, get the latest updates about these community meetings and various other bits and pieces. So yeah, please do join us there. Um, a quick look at the agenda for today. So we'll start with introductions, and then, as I said, we've got Julian and Dave here. So looking forward to hearing from them. The timings are just indicative. I just put those down. No pressure on Julian and Dave on fulfilling that. Whatever you've got is great. And then once you have presented, we'll then have time for a bit of Q&A and discussion. So that'd be great. Hopefully a bit of chance at the end if there's anything else anyone wants to raise. So yeah, we'll start with introductions. If you're new to the call, then we usually start with a round of introductions just so everybody can get to know others in the community and those on the call. So I'll start with myself. My name's Tim Corby and I work for the Open Data Institute, or the ODI for short. And we at the ODI are currently acting as the stewards of OpenActive. And we do various stuff related to that, including running these community meetings. So I will be have the pleasure of hosting you today. I will quickly run through my other ODI colleagues who are on the call. So I'll come to Howard first.
Hi, Howard Askew, Senior Data Technologist at the ODI, and I support the OpenActive initiative from a technical perspective, working on some of the infrastructure and the services behind the scenes and the specifications themselves, the standards. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Howard. And Darren.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Darren Temple, also technologist with the ODI, helping similarly to Howard on the technical infrastructure of OpenActive.
Great, thanks, Darren. And then in no particular order, Julian, you're first up on my list of people.
Hi, yeah, I'm Jules from York Sport Foundation. Been doing this a long while, so looking to see what happens.
Great, thanks, Julian, or Jules for short. Dave.
Hi, Dave Barter from NautiGuide. I'm down here in Brixham, small business working on location-based data and mapping in the wellbeing, health and travel sector now.
Thank you very much, Dave. Grace.
Hi, yeah, I'm Grace. I'm SASP's Digital Project Officer, so SASP is Somerset Activity and Sports Partnership.
Thank you very much. Lauren?
Yeah, I'm in Cardiff and Vale University Health Board, and we are quite early on our journey of open data, so we hope it's okay, but we're just coming along to find out a little bit more and understand it a bit better. I know we've connected with Grace, and Jules has sent us the link to this today.
Fantastic. No, great to have you. Yeah, you're more than welcome. So thank you very much for joining, and don't be afraid to ask questions if you're new to this. Yeah, no stupid questions. So either in the chat or just pipe up. These meetings are quite informal. So yeah, please just jump in and ask if there's anything you are not sure about.
Thanks so much.
No worries. Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm marketing manager at Active Lincolnshire and oversee our activity finder, which is how we use OA.
Thanks, Paul. Everyone's jumping about, so I'm getting a bit lost, but I think Yasmin, I'm not sure I've come to you yet, so I'll come to you next.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Yasmin Hoskin. I'm Everyday Active Officer at Active Kent and Medway, and I oversee our activity finder here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Yasmin. And then I think the only one I have left, I only have on my screen iPad 8, but I think I heard in the background that that was Tom Marley. Is that you there? Are you free to introduce yourself? If not, no worries. If you're in a space with
There's a comment to say he's just jumping onto his laptop.
Okay, cool. No worries. So yeah, it's Kyle from Cardiff Met Sport, for those who aren't able to access the chat. So yeah, thanks, Kyle. Good to have you on the call. Great. So lovely to have you all here. Thanks very much for that. And without further ado, we'll get going with our speakers today. So we've got Julian and Dave. I don't know if you have a particular order or if you're having a sort of guitar jam off to decide who goes first.
Yeah, we're doing dueling banjos, and Julian's starting on the banjo.
Great, fantastic.
Not the box guitar, but near enough. Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's the
I'll
guitar?
come to you first. Thank you.
Yes, basically we've been at this a long while. I've been with the Active Partnership since before the iPhone, and we started building a club database years ago. I've looked through, I've been writing a blog. Is that blog coming out, Tim?
Yes, it will be. It's just going through the various rooms of people who have to review these things. So there might be some tweaks that come back to you, but yeah, should
essentially it helped me understand the journey we've been on. So we started with I was building websites in 1997 when I was building them, but with the Active Partnership we wanted a club finder so people could find out where things were. So we built one around 2011. Then when we updated in 2015, we went with the Sports Suite system because that was the club finder and also the activity finder, a lot of other things. And we've just been building on from there. We use that as a kind of a heart of our CRM. So everyone, the newsletters go through it so you can track how people are doing it. And so we've been doing that for a while, but some of the data has been really out of date. Some of it is since 2015. And on this call about 2 years ago, I met Dave and he was talking about his system. And I kind of went, ooh, that could really change things, the way that you basically go out and scrape data from the internet, go through review periods and just collate it and bring back an absolutely much better and accurate database. So he went through the process. I suppose, Dave, do you want to come in at this point?
And talk through what we actually did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no problems. I'm going to share my screen if that's all right. Tim, am I allowed?
I think so, as far as I know. But if you have any problems,
try.
let me know and I'll try and figure it out.
Let's try and share that. Good. Can you all see that?
Yeah, going through. Yeah.
So the challenge that Jules gave us is that they have a existing data set and it contains a number of records, and some of those records will be current, and some will have data in it, and some will have data that's poor. And they also knew that there's stuff that should be in there that wasn't. And I'm going to talk you through the process that we went through to get them from a data set of, it was around about 3,400 records, and we almost doubled that using this process. And the first thing is that Jules gave us an extract in CSV format, which we loaded into ArcGIS and mapped it. And we very quickly found out that not everything was in Yorkshire. And in fact, we found some stuff just off the coast of Africa. We found stuff in London. We found stuff in the home counties, and this was actually down to the geocoding within the system, where some records had good coordinates, some records had the wrong coordinates, and some records had no coordinates, which puts them off the coast of Africa. So the first thing that we did was to take their data and properly geocode it so that we had everything that we had a confidence that was contained within the Yorkshire area. And then the next thing that we did was to conflate that with other sets of data that we already hold. So we hold OpenActive data, we hold OpenFill data, and we hold Active places data. So we conflated those sources into one data set, and knew that there was still some opportunity missing. And from that point, we tried two ways of gaining that missed opportunity. One was to use location targeted searching. It's really poor. It's really hard to come up with quality data. And the other was to use targeted web crawling. So when we know there's a listing of clubs or organizations that are linked to sports, we point a crawler at it and it brings us back the data. So we ended up with a massive database of data constrained to Yorkshire and national data, which we then constrained down to Yorkshire. So now we're just dealing with stuff that is in Yorkshire. And the second problem with any kind of data is there's going to be duplicates in there, and there always is. It's a problem that I've seen in OpenActive, and it's a problem that I've seen just about every data project I've ever done. And deduplicating data sounds easy. Just put all the records, sort them by something, and then just pick one. It's not. It's actually quite a hard task because you've got to decide what to deduplicate on. And in this case, we chose a combination of name, address, and some proximity analysis, where the records were on top of each other or a long way apart. And sometimes that has to be fuzzy. And the reason it has to be fuzzy is because everybody is unbelievably bad at entering data. So you'll end up with clubs with a capital C and a lowercase c, with apostrophes that are missing or not, with address data that contains elements that it should and shouldn't, or contain localisms that actually aren't normalized addresses. So that deduplication task is a difficult one, and it doesn't produce an exact set of distinct records. You still have to do some work later on to score them to pick the best candidate records. But anyway, having gone through that, the process that we then did was one of augmentation. So in deduplication, we're not throwing away data. What we're saying is we think this is the best record. Right, we had these other records that we think are duplicates. They may have columns within it that are better than the best record. So for example, the best record may have a phone number missing, but a duplicate record has it in. So we can then use that to augment the best record. And the idea being is from that deduplication process to come up with a record that is the best combination of everything that we've seen. So having done that, we've now in theory got some reasonable data, and that's where we have to do a whole set of checks. And so we went through the key premise in our mind is this stuff is all about discovery. So let's make sure the discovery data is as good as it can be. Let's make sure we've got good address data, good contact information in there, good web links being critical. And if there's an email address, make sure that it actually will work. And there are techniques for doing that. So we go through it all. And then finally have a check to see, is there anything in there that should be that isn't? So for example, if we haven't got a telephone number, but we've got a web link, can we go to that web link? Can we find the telephone number at that web link and then augment the record? And again, this is where we're using large language models to help us with that processing. So we'll go off, fetch the content of a website, we'll give it to the LLM will say, does this content represent the website? Yes. Does it represent the description that we've got? Yes. Can you find a phone number in there that appears to be a contact phone number? Yes. Brilliant. Good job. Or not. And then having done that, we went through a final process of assessing and scoring the entire record to give us a pass-fail score, which in my mind is, am I happy giving this back to Julian such that it can be republished? And we set a threshold. We used LLMs and other mechanisms to score all of those records. And they then fell into three categories at the end of it. Clear rejects. So this is a mess. This is missing all sorts of stuff. The website appears dead. The description doesn't appear to match anything. We can't find any other instance of that organization. Because I forgot to mention, by the way, is that if we had poor quality, we used a secondary search on the club to see if we could find it through an internet search. But anyway, in that case, we'll reject it, and we don't even think that you should look at that record. There are a second set of scorings where the deduplication algorithm just couldn't be sure whether these two were duplicates or not, and we felt we needed some manual intervention there, and that's where we gave Julian a set of records that needed a human decision on. And the final ones were the ones where we had clear, good candidates that could he could then use it and upload back into his system. And I think the one caveat that I need to add to this is that it probably looks nice and simple on this diagram here. And it probably looks like I've got a system where you just load a CSV into it and it all works automatically. It isn't. There was some learning and manual process in this. We've used a whole series of tools that we've got and workflows that we've got to run this process. And I don't know if it's pertinent to this meeting, but the reason we've developed a lot of this is because the travel industry has exactly the same problem that you do. Visitors to a town want to know what to do there. So let's marry that with the idea of people looking for opportunities to exercise. But they want to know that those things actually exist, and they want to know that those things are going to be open, and they want to know that those things match what they want to do. And you will go to TripAdvisor, you'll go to Google, you'll go to the local information site, and you'll find this information. And I can promise you it will be out of date in a lot of cases. And that's across all of those players. So we're building a workflow to support the travel industry to do something very, very similar to this. Where we ended up across here is, I can't remember the exact number, I think it's 7,400 records, wasn't it, Julian? We rejected a large number of his, but from the ones that we rejected, we were able to find them from other sources and re-implement them. And it's essentially doubled the size of that directory as the end result. And I think I'll stop there and hand back to Jules if there's anything that I've missed.
No, it was brilliant. It was all very well done. I'm very happy with what we've done. I do like a metaphor. And I did feel that at this point I'd be riding my ship triumphantly into the King's Harbour and say, look at what I have discovered and the plunder I brought back. But I appear to have beached a whale on the seafront. We need to decide what to do with it, because we've got this data, but apparently it's a bit of a legal grey area with who owns the rights of the database. There's some 1990s legality going through it, and I'm just trying to work out how we do it, because we've also got GDPR for sharing people's contacts and what we can actually do with it. This is kind of where I'm saying, well, these are national system partners getting funding from Sport England to do this thing. We should all have a simple agreement goes, yes, if it's on our database and you are also a system partner, a charity for Sport England, we should all have the rights to share each other's data. But how we get to that sign-off position, I'm just a bit unsure. And the whale is sat there wheezing a bit.
Not quite sure how to respond to that. Wow, yeah, a lot to dig into there. Really fascinating. And thanks, Dave, for giving such a kind of clear and hopefully easy to understand for non-tech. I'm not particularly techy myself, so I followed it really well. So thank you, Dave. That was great. I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to say. Sorry, Tim. I'm just trying to say it's not easy. It's not an easy technical task to come up with these types of data sets.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. Yeah, really interesting. I think we'll then open the floor for kind of discussion and questions if anyone has any. Jules, do you want to just add something quickly before we do that?
I'm now interrupting myself. This is a first. But I would like to invite his comments from Lauren, because we've been talking with her and Alex in Wales about this. Also, Paul has been talking about something similar in Lincolnshire, and Katie Crockett from Derby was the first person to work with Dave in this kind of area. So there are a few things who are relevant that are worth hearing from.
Definitely, yeah. Put you on the spot there, Lauren and Paul. Yeah, it'd be great to hear from you. And I think if in the kind of discussion and the questions that come out, if there's any kind of particular lessons that you've learned, Julian and Dave, from doing this work, of how this could be scaled or replicated, or how we could tackle some of the challenges you've come up against, and how OpenActive in particular could sort of, as an initiative, or as a whatever you want to call it, can support moving some of this forward, or helping to tackle some of these challenges, or make some of this easier, then that would be great as well.
Well, essentially, as part of the process, Dave set his machine against the problem and came out with a national club database. And he gave us South Yorkshire and West Yorkshire because that's what we'd commissioned. But actually, there's a national club database that's out there and ready. What
Not quite ready, but
yeah, nearly ready.
Yeah, I think to answer that question, Tim, is in the generic world, you have search engines that you can just go to and type what you want, and there it is, it appears, and you can type anything. And the challenge is always, with all of this data, is how do you keep it relevant and up to date? And what I discovered, which frustrated me a lot, is out there are lots and lots and lots and lots of silos of information, and that there's the reason you have to deduplicate, and the reason you have to use multi-sources in order to validate a record is because of all these different sources of truth. And what our initiative, which ultimately is trying to get people fitter, needs a single source of truth. And that single source of truth is really going to come from the horse's mouth, is the clubs themselves and the organisations. And I think standards like OpenActive somewhere down the line can help support that. But we've got a problem now, and it's if we could get an initiative that is going to kind of do what I've done on a national scale for everybody. That doesn't get sucked into some commercial entity, so they own it, because that's the problem you've got with Google data and what have you. Then I think it's a worthy thing to do, because again, sorry to use the travel analogy, it's the same problem in that industry. In that industry, Google owns all the travel data, as do TripAdvisor. You can't use their APIs. You're not allowed unless you display it on their site and in the way that they want you to. So they are owning cafe, restaurant, bed and breakfast data, and they shouldn't. And so when Jules says I've got a national database of clubs, well, I've got the first part of that. There's a secondary process, which is then cleaning it up against everything else at scale and giving it to everybody. And it just would be great if that could be done somehow. And if we can help, then we can, and if not, then just rob my flowchart and someone else can do it.
Cool, thanks, Dave. I don't want to dominate the conversation here, so I'm going to shut up and let other people jump in. So please, anyone who has questions, either if you would rather put them in the chat and I can read them out, or if not, then please do put up your hand or just dive in. Looks like Darren's wants to come in. Go for it, Darren.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in terms of if you could put a fraction on it, so the amount of manual work that had to be done versus the automated thumbs up, this is fine, doesn't really need to look at. What did that look like? Sort of like 5%, 10%?
It's in the manual work that we did is if you imagine you're in a factory watching yogurts going down the line, you're pulling the odd yogurt off and looking at it and then putting it back on. So we sampled all the way down the data at all the stages. We probably looked at in total, I don't know, 1,000 odd records, just scanning down them to make sure they're all okay. And I can't remember how many records I gave you, Jules, in that amber area. Can you remember what that was?
It was in the top hundreds, but it was
Yeah.
it was a morning's job.
Mhm, mhm. And so a follow on to that in terms of like sustainability, because it's not just a kind of one time done, you know, you're going to want to do the pass again, the read, however often you want to refresh. Like, would that be 24-hour refresh, 7 days refresh, monthly refresh, and also regardless of the kind of sweep of the all the data sources, what would be the cadence of requiring a similar level of manual check again?
Well, in all these systems, if you build in decent feedback loops, that decreases over time. So, because what you're trying to do is train a model and a system to become self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Where I architect, if someone turned around to me and said, "Right, I want this done on a national basis, and it needs to run, give me data that has a currency of about a month," because with club data, I'd say that was probably enough.
Mm-hmm.
Then you at the start. In your early months, you'd probably be doing a similar set of checks, but you'd be improving the process. Or if you're really clever, you'd be training an agent alongside you to take over that role for it to become fully automated.
Okay, so you're currently looking at one Julian person's morning a month.
Yes.
For later months, it'll be half an hour, then 10 minutes.
Yes.
You've already done the bad things once, and the new things has come in. It'll be decreasing.
Yeah.
Or you do what chip manufacturers do, and you say, well, the threshold's this, and anything above that threshold gets published, and anything below it we just discard. So you don't do that. You don't do that process. We bear in mind this is pioneering for us because we'd not done it before with sports club data. So we were all over it to make sure that it made sense. And one of the things that we had to go back to was, for example, we got LLMs to build good descriptions for data when they were poor. And occasionally the prompt would inject something that you didn't really want to be on a public site. So
it extrapolates and hallucinates some extra spice around it. Yeah.
Okay, it was actually more annoying is it tells you what it's doing. It's you end up with a description that says, I've looked at this website and this is a hockey club based in the Midlands, and you just don't want it to say, I looked at this.
Cool. Thanks for the insight.
Cool. Thanks, Darren. And I think there must be something about people who are interested in OpenActive and people who like analogies, because there's quite a few people on the call who seem to like analogy, and I'm all for it. I think it's great. Makes it much easier to follow. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions? Putting people on the spot.
Lauren or Paul, have you anything that you're thinking about?
I'll jump in. I was just busy putting my camera back on. Yeah, for us, Dave doesn't know this, but yeah, I've been talking to Jules about it and where it might sit with us. Similar, because we're an active partnership, it's around how we can utilize that for both the team to actually build up their own knowledge or find gaps or be able to target stuff as we move with place expansion, to be able to kind of have a better idea of where exactly we go and where the opportunities might be. And the other bit was the activity finder and how we can use this to bolster that. Now we're on Playways, so they have a club directory within the activity finder. And so that would be my focus as to, if we've got the data, how can we use it publicly? It's public, and as just Jill said, it's that GDPR part, it's that who owns it and how we can share it on that I've not quite got my head around yet either, that I'd be keen to find any sort of solution on. And my other bit was then, if it feeds kind of with the club standard being talked about, where does this lead? I know there's a different timeline. We can do one straight away and the club standards down the road. But if we're about to do a database, is there anything from ODI's perspective in that club standard or any direction on the data that you're going to want in there that we can then make sure Dave is building into what he's doing right now before we end up with loads of databases and active partnerships doing something to then find, if only we'd set the algorithm up to ask 2 more questions. And there's no solution, but that's my kind of penny's worth.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's really interesting. I don't know if Dave and Jules, do you want to tackle the first bit first, and then I'm happy to sort of talk about the second bit.
Yeah, in terms of the data, for all the data that I've looked at is facts, and so in really it's facts about organisations, and the contact information that we've looked at is publicly available contact information that has been made public, and so there's your GDPR view on that is going to be one of risk management, really, isn't it? It's whether you feel you can republish the details of an organization who put their contact details out there to be published or not. Because what we're not dealing with is some information that you've gathered privately through a web form, which you're then republishing without having consent. What you're doing is signposting back to information that was already out there. And that, by the way, is what we did. So the kind of the links that we inject to signpost back to the record that we found on the internet. It's not as if we've logged into a system that we're not allowed to log into and found something secret and republished it.
That would be my plan B. If we couldn't put in the phone number, we would say, here's the link with the phone numbers on there. I don't want to have to do that, but it's one way we could get round it.
And to answer the second question, sorry.
So just a very quick one on that. So are you saying that each kind of record or source you've got is attributable? You have like a
100%. Yeah. We kept all of that. Yeah. And in the question on standards is I love them. I conform to as many of them as I can. We'll happily output this in whatever standards people want. It's just we need to see it in order to be able to do it. Just make sure it's JSON, not XML, and we'll be fine.
I'm a big fan of the site ID in Active Places. I was talking to Liz at Active Places this morning about this very subject, and I think if we embed that in, then that's instantly tying everyone into a unique feed in Sport England's managed data system. So that should be the number one deduplication source that we have.
Yes, it's bear in mind it can be. It isn't necessarily going to be exclusive because you may have an active place that's a leisure centre that's got 6 clubs in it. But it then gives you one thing, which then allows you to work your deduplication at another set of attributes within there.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. It was interesting. The second you started talking about GDPR and legal things, Andrew appeared as though he'd been summoned, but I wouldn't necessarily put him on the spot to dive straight into such a thorny area. But maybe if you have any thoughts on that you wanted to chip in at some point, Andrew. But just while you're thinking on that, I'll pick up on Paul's second point, which is about the kind of club work that is going on, and I think has sort of come up at the AEF a couple of times before, and I think London Sport have talked about some of the work that they did in London. So I think a similar sort of project, but maybe with less automation and more kind of manually going to NGBs and things like that to gather data from them. But yeah, London Sport have built up a kind of club database, which I think they are hosting in their Open Sessions platform. And that was part of a work or a funded project that was funded by the Greater London Authority. I might get some of these names wrong, so apologies, but I think it's the Greater London Authority, and they were trying to strengthen what they call the Civic Data Index in London, which is a kind of whole load of different data sets and databases and different points of data about public services and public things going on in London, and they were interested in developing a database of sports clubs in London, and so London Sport did a whole load of work, which I think they have published a report from that on their website, so I can try and dig out the link and put it in the description of the recording, if people are interested in that. And in addition to that, we at the ODI have been doing some thinking about club stuff as well, because it's a question that has come up quite a few times from different people in the community, talking about OpenActive, about this kind of need to have a way for organizations who maybe, for whatever reason, aren't able, or it's not practical for them to publish, activity level data. So actually, going down to the granularity of what time an activity is and where it is, and what days of the week it is and all of that for whatever reason, that's not practical or not available to them. And, it'd be easier to just publish at an organization level. And yeah, there's kind of various different strands to it. I think there's the kind of the data sets that are already out there with organizations like NGBs in sport that have, if you go on most of them, they will have a find a club link, which will have some form of club database, which you can put in a postcode and search. And it might be just a Google map with pins on it. It might just be a list of names of clubs. It might have a bit more info to it. It might have, more information about the type of activities that club runs, the age groups that club, caters for, and all that kind of stuff. But it might literally just be a name of a club and a pin on a map, and that's pretty much it. So there's that kind of side of it, that those kind of databases that already exist as databases, and then there's broader community clubs that the kind of ones I think that Dave's been talking a little bit about, finding on that might have a Facebook page or whatever but aren't necessarily accredited to an NGB, and how do we unlock that data as well. I think our thinking is that the first or easiest point of call would be trying to tackle that first part first. And so we've been thinking a bit about how we unlock that kind of NGB level data and how we would maybe get them to publish in an OpenActive style way. So we wouldn't be talking about collecting a central database as such. Our thinking at the moment is more about how we get those NGBs to publish a data feed from their sites, that that data that already exists in their club finder. But yeah, there's lots of it sounds simple on the face of it, but there's lots of extra points to it, like, is that data then useful if it's just the name of a club and maybe a contact detail and a link, or do we, in an ideal world, can we attach loads of other data fields to it to make it more useful and more, for more use cases like social prescribing or whatever, where you'd have more information about accessibility and what activities are going on, and but then obviously you're then putting more burden on the clubs to provide that information, and the NGBs, do they collect that data when they're building their database and from their clubs and all that kind of thing. So there's lots of unanswered questions. There's not going to be an answer soon, I don't think, but yeah, we are thinking about that, and we're very welcome. We really welcome thoughts from people as well. There is an OpenActive. For those who aren't familiar with OpenActive, we have a pay. I don't know what you call it, Darren or Howard can probably tell me, but we have a GitHub place on GitHub, which has means to list sort of issues and get people to put comments and things. And we do have an open one about this topic, which has some more information about some of the thinking and a few comments from different people in the community. So again, I can share a link to that, and people can have a read through. GitHub repository. Thank you, Howard. You're laughing at me and my amateurness. So yeah, I can share that, and you can have a read through them. And please, if you have any comments or things you want to add to that as well, then yeah, very welcome to do so. Howard, what have I got wrong or missed? Oh, put his hand up and then camera went off. Are you there, Howard?
I am, but I'm getting an intermittent signal or something at the minute, so sorry about that. I've knocked the camera off, see if that helps. I was losing you a bit. I'm happy to let other people talk first, though, before I speak, if anyone else has got any other questions.
What was it on what I've just said? Were you adding to that?
Well, it was about the club standard work, and so we've been obviously working with London Sport, and they kind of collected their club data in a manner that was aligned or compatible with the OpenActive specifications that we've got so far. There are other club specifications out there, or organization specifications. I think you pointed to the GitHub issue. So in the GitHub repository for our data model, our opportunity data model, we have created an issue, which is where we start the discussion about these kind of things. And so there's an issue there, number 313. I haven't got the link but I can put it in the chat where you can add comments. Jules has added a few, I think, in the past. So that's where this conversation is happening online. And we want to, I think it makes sense to move towards a version of club data that is sufficient for kind of OpenActive purposes. And obviously not all of that will be mandatory. We know some clubs might not have all the details, not be able to fill all the boxes, but it's still useful information. So we'll be working towards publishing a version of that soon. That's the kind of the shape of the data. As to what we would kind of encourage published under the OpenActive heading, we'll have to sort out some of those issues around the GDPR and around things like the timeliness, how up to date that information is it being maintained to maintain the quality and trust in the kind of OpenActive data that we'd hope to see. I think that's all I want to say.
Thanks, Howard. Yeah, great. And yeah,
Sorry, go on, Tim,
nope.
finish what you're saying.
Go on. No, go on.
I was just going to pick up, Howard sort of touched on it, but I was going to pick up on a point you said about how much detail is useful. From our side, as little as we can get away with sometimes. It's always great to chase perfection and have more, so it's relevant for social prescribing or linking in and to kind of medical or whatever else it is. But sometimes actually we can spend years waiting and not doing something in order to have every bit of detail. And if we've got NGBs that have got a location, a club name, and we know what sport or activity they deliver because they're an NGB, we may not know all the variations of archery they do, but if we know their archery, at least we can tag it with that for an activity finder, and that's a good start. And I'd rather see that live sooner than wait ages for detail. On Howard's point on dates, activities are live. We know that they are time bound. I don't know what the options are to build in like this was last updated or this data was last pulled on this date as to whether that would solve. I don't know if that exists on the NGBs as to when they last updated it to know if theirs is in date or out of date, as opposed to when we've looked at it, but might be a solution to have that publicly listed.
There seems to be a semi-class of data where you've got an activity, this is happening next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And that is a fixed piece of data people upload. But there's also a lot of places that just have we practice every Tuesday at 6:30, but give us a call before you set off, because we obviously don't want to do it on Christmas. Not bad, but it's that kind of semi-accurate data where you can go, well, yeah, you're more likely to get 10 times as much data if just we do it every Tuesday, but give us a call before you set off. That would just add zeros to the amount of activity data we can put on our finders.
Cool. Thanks, Jules.
Can I just add something to this idea of missing data? Because don't forget, you can also derive some of it. So, for example, one things that we do within our Lucaria system is every single OpenActive activity type, we've classified it against METs, which is a measure of exertion. We've classified it against price. So we've worked out a sliding scale, and each activity we put into a price band, which immediately gives us 2 data points that don't need to exist for any activity as to how much exertion do you need to undertake it and what is the price point in order for doing this. And so for a lot of this data, you can actually further derive information that helps in the discovery process, even if it isn't there. And that's where I think sometimes, with the standard, totally understand the need for standards. And if you can get somebody to fill that in, that's brilliant. But it's also worth, when you're looking at a standard, thinking, is there anything within it that we can derive based upon the bare minimum of information that we've got there in the first place?
Thanks, Dave. That's really interesting. And so did you sort of create a framework for that yourself, or did you?
Yeah, we've got it. We've got
something to build that framework of.
What I did is I did a lot of research to understand METs. There are some great data sets out there which classify activities against METs. Of course, those activity names don't marry with the OpenActive ones. So what I did is I had to run a huge process similar to what we're doing here, where I married the 2 data sets together. so that I ended up with a METS classifier for every single OpenActive activity. And the pricing we did with a bit of training of an LLM to say, here's all the activities that we know and the pricing levels of them. Can you then go through and work out a price band for all of these activities?
Cool. That's really interesting. Thanks, Dave. Were there any other thoughts or questions, or anyone else who maybe haven't had a chance to speak yet, who would like to jump in and ask a question or make a comment or speak from their experience?
I would like to re-invite Lauren again because I think she was about to say something a little while ago when Julian invited her and the conversation got slightly sidetracked. So if Lauren, not to put you on the spot, feel free to decline, but I did see your mic go on, so it looked like you had something to say a little while ago.
Yeah, although I was just going to say I'm enjoying listening. I think we still haven't actually got our activity finder set up, so it's all just kind of useful information to digest and think about. So no, I haven't really got anything to add unless Kyle has from Cardiff perspective. But yeah, I think it's like a Pandora's box, isn't it? It's kind of worms when you open it. Yeah.
What is the audience you're looking for, Lauren?
Well, I think that's probably what we need to go back to and kind of reconfirm what it is we want it for, because I think now our understanding is a little bit clearer. I think we need to rethink. We need to be clear on what it is we're doing, why.
Because some people are using it for open referral. So someone could say, find something for someone they think they'd like. But obviously with the NHS shift towards digital and prevention, this is absolutely at the biting point of those two.
And that's where we're finding ourselves, because we're based, public health is based in health boards in Wales. So it's slightly, so we're trying to bring those two worlds together a bit. And we're, I guess the way that some of the activity finders interact with software such as Elemental in the social prescribing world, we're just trying to understand all of that and piece it all together. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe we're asking too much, and I think that's maybe where we need to consider what it is we start with.
Well, you know what to ask now.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if Kyle, you've got anything to add. You're in it a bit more than I am, so.
You're really quiet, Carl.
The mic's pointing upwards.
That would help, wouldn't it? Yeah, thanks for the insight, everyone. It's really good learning for us as well in terms of our position and where we're currently at. So we work alongside Lauren and her colleague Alex in the public health board, or public health team, sorry. We are based out of the university and we're very community facing, traditionally work to support the likes of providers, sports clubs, etc. But we've now moved into this space in working with health and trying to connect that system. I think the overriding objective that we have is that we don't want to duplicate what's already out there. I think we mentioned previously there's a repository or directory called Dewis, and it can be and it is dormant. And why we're looking at this space is to support people to be able to access information. And like Lauren said, I think we need to have a bit of a revisit as to who that is and how to best do it. What we don't want to do is essentially duplicate what's already out there. But having gone through the process of finding out a bit more about activity finders, how they function, there's a balance between finding the right navigation system to allow people to find that information and how it links with health. And the minefield of data sets is what we're learning is a complicated thing.
In the blog I've done for this, I think AI is going to be the key to it all. You will have your own personal trainer, personal life coach, butler on your watch, and it'll say, you need to do something. This is interesting near you. There'll be just the technology is just ready to absolutely do something useful.
Yeah, and I think point Dave was making earlier about how this is a problem that's not doesn't just exist in sport and physical activity, it exists, more broadly than that. And a lot of the time people aren't necessarily looking just for sport and physical activity on their own. They're looking for community services more broadly. So it's how we can think about this more holistically. And I think we at the ODI are sort of starting to think in that way as well, and about how some of these data initiatives and things, data infrastructure can support this, community services more widely and more broadly, because it all kind of connects together. So there's no point solving it in one place. You need to think about the big picture. We're just coming to the last 5 minutes. Was there anyone who had anything else they would like to add just quickly at the end, or any other business, maybe not necessarily related to what's on the call today? Yeah, Andrew looks very thoughtful. I don't know, was there anything in particular? You didn't get a chance to sort of introduce yourself at the start of the call either, so I don't know if you want to quickly just introduce yourself. And
Yes, thanks, Tim, and apologies for being late. So I'm Andrew Newman. I'm Principal Data Specialist at the ODI, and I've looked at the work that Julian and Dave have been doing, and it's quite relevant to me because I'm based in Yorkshire. So I've been busy looking at their data and trying to work out what some of the quirks and foibles are of it, and some of the benefits of it. I think it's a really impressive piece of work. It's good. I don't know. Do you want to? I think the idea of scraping content is really interesting. And we've been having a bit of a discussion in the background around the kind of legitimacy of scraping. I think fundamentally it's not illegal to scrape data from the web, but you need to be careful when you're doing it. Data that is publicly available is still, if it's personal data, it's still protected by GDPR. Data that is publicly available have some form of ownership. It would belong to someone. And there will be terms and conditions often in place that control that data that aren't always reflected in the robots.txt. Robots.txt is a technical way of controlling access to data for robots on the web. I think, you can make quite, in this scenario, you can make quite clear legitimate interest arguments for reusing data that is scraped. I think that's, you can make quite good GDPR arguments about why you're using the data. The fact that it's publicly available helps. The fact that we're using it for the public good helps. I think on the IP point, IP is protected through things like database rights and copyrights. Database rights are designed to protect the kind of database as a whole. So if you're taking parts of it, there's probably less risk there. Copyright in this scenario probably only applies to things like images, videos, big blocks of content. So as long as you're not taking those, you're probably okay from a copyright perspective. But it's all quite grey, and there are no clear answers. So I think it's important that when you're scraping data, you assess the risks that you are taking in scraping data, and ODI has various tools for assessing risk. So I think I would encourage anyone who is looking at taking these kind of data scraping approaches to look at the ethics of doing that. And as ODI, we have a data ethics canvas that can be really useful in thinking about that. But also the data sharing risks, and we also have a data sharing risk assessment that can be used in that scenario. So I think our line on scraping would be careful, be respectful, do it in ways that are ethical. I think those are the really important messages around scraping content. I think one of my other reflections on our kind of work on club data over the last probably the last 12 months or so, and looking at the examples that Yorkshire Sport have produced and the work that London Sport have done, and looking at some of the local, the NGB data sets. I think data quality is really important in this space, and working out what good looks like from a data quality point of view is going to be really important, particularly where you've potentially got duplication of data to enable you to deduplicate data. So, I was looking at Julian's product for Yorkshire, and I looked at my local tennis club, and it has 4 pins. One of them is Hallamshire Tennis Club. One of them is Hallamshire Tennis Club Limited. One of them is someone providing tennis instruction at that club, and I can't remember what the fourth one was. But I think there are things that we need to do to really carefully understand what good quality looks like in this space. So yeah, those are my immediate reflections, I think.
Thanks for that. It's good to know.
It's impossible to get this data 100% right. So, but I think and you've made really good steps. But I think my message is more general. I'm not aiming to target your product. My message is more general that, if we're thinking about organizational data, we need to think about the quality of that really carefully.
I think what we would do is, I think when it goes, well, it is live, but when we actually go out and tell people about it, that's when people say, there's 4 things here. It should only be 2. Yeah. And then we do it. But I keep coming back to this fundamental thing that it shouldn't be 140 system partners asking one question. It should be a national thing going, this is what you do, be nice, and there you go. And then we can all do it because we're all system partners here. Just about everyone we're talking about here is Sport England lottery funded. So we're all kind of under the same umbrella. So we should really all be swinging, having the same kind of legal advice, as it were.
And it could be that we can make a recommendation to Sport England that they encourage their system partners to publish this data in particular ways so that we don't need to do things like scraping, or we don't need to do as much scraping. There will always be organisations that are not affiliated, of course. So, we can talk about the affiliated versus the unaffiliated. So maybe you get your affiliated organisation data from the governing bodies and then you scrape for the rest of it. And I think we just need to think about that method a bit and that the implications of data quality to make sure that we've got a product that is robust.
Brilliant, thanks. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to sort of call it there because we've hit our time. Although, Dave, did you want to just come in quickly? You came off mic.
The only thing I'd say is that just to be clear, because I feel that you're looking at what we've done here and said, they've gone and scraped a load of data and put it into the system. No. That's what we've done is we've used the original data sources, and we've used the data that we've pulled to try and improve that. This isn't a mass scraping exercise. It's an exercise to try and improve the data that kind of exists. And I think the second thing as well, and this is what we've tried to do with OpenActive data. We're about signposting. It's not about creating records and putting them in another system. It's about signposting back to that original publisher. But the problem is they don't make it easy to do that. And Google have spied all of these sites. I can replicate what I've done by Google searching. I can do the same thing. And I can also find the duplicate records by doing the very same thing. And the problem isn't duplication. Sometimes the problem is that there are 4 organizations advertising themselves differently. And as Julian says, the only way you can get around that, it's not a data quality issue. It's an issue of somebody saying, those 4 are the same thing. Or they're almost the same thing. So I just want to make it very clear that what I haven't done here is gone out and scraped a load of data and stuck it into a database. It's a different project to that.
And I think you're almost automatically doing some of the stuff that we recommend around data ethics and data risk. Like I think you're doing those naturally as part of your practice. I think that the method is fine. It's just that we need to make sure people understand the method. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because the point that we agree on is I shouldn't have to do it. I should not have to do this. There should be every sporting organisation should have an ID, and it should be able to be published in multiple places. And we can all then kind of use it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to end on. We're all trying to get to the same end goal, and it's I think the approach you've taken is a really innovative one, Dave, and really valuable to help to move these conversations forward and help to progress this stuff and help all of us to get towards that end goal that we're all working together to get towards. So yeah, thank you very much, Julian and Dave. your time today and for presenting. It's really valuable, I think, to share with the community and for us to hear what you've been up to. And yeah,
cool.
a good push in the right direction. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Sorry, we've slightly overrun, but yeah, I hope you've found the session useful today. It's been great to see a couple of new faces. So thank you very much for coming along, and I'm very happy to follow up with you maybe. And if you have anything you'd like to talk about in more detail, or you'd like to find out a bit more about OpenActive or anything, then please do get in touch with us. We'd be very happy to have a chat with you. Yeah, so I'll close there, but thanks very much everyone for joining. Really good to see you all, and yeah, let's keep this conversation going and keep moving in the same direction, keep working together. So thanks everyone, and yeah, hope to speak to you all again soon.
Thanks a lot.